Welcome to Smarter Markets, a weekly podcast featuring the icons and entrepreneurs of technology, commodities, and finance, ranting on the inadequacies of our systems and riffing on ideas for how to solve them. Together, we examine the questions: are we facing a crisis of information or a crisis of trust? And will building smarter markets be the antidote? This episode is brought to you in part by Abax Exchange, where trading in centrally cleared, physically deliverable LNG and carbon futures contracts is now underway. Ready for smarter markets?
Welcome to Inside the Coffeehouse on Smarter Markets. I'm Dave Greely, Chief Economist at Abax Technologies. We're doing something a little different today. Instead of speaking with a guest, I'd like to introduce you to Coffeehouse, Smarter Markets' new social media platform for advancing the conversation on energy, climate, markets, and technology. I'll admit that it's an odd time to be talking about anything other than the recent U.S. elections and what comes next. This is a momentous event. The decisive win by President Donald Trump will see him return to the White House with a Supreme Court that he reshaped in his first term, and his Republican Party in control of both the Senate and the House of Representatives. However, it's also an event whose most important implications will take more than a week to recognize. Hot takes have never been our thing here at Smarter Markets, and it seemed unfair to ask one of our guests to try to put it all in context for us. Especially as this is a moment in which the things that you have some confidence in your opinion on seem small in the grand scheme relative to things that you can't have confidence in your opinion on. For example, in the world of energy, we would expect the Biden pause on LNG projects will be lifted quickly. But of course, that always seemed to be more of a transparent piece of political theater than a meaningful policy stance, and it likely would have been lifted had Vice President Harris won anyway. It's also straightforward enough to expect more deregulation and easier permitting, with a shift in the balance towards economic growth over climate concerns. But at the same time, something profound has happened. There's been a realignment, and it's hard to guess where the lines are now. Even in energy, it seems more complicated than drill baby drill when you have the influence of Elon Musk for electric vehicles and big tech pursuing nuclear energy for its AI data centers. The Inflation Reduction Act programs have always been unabashedly nationalist, with many subsidies going to red states. Will it stay or will it go? And of course, there are the broader issues of how the geopolitics of America First will play out in Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Iran, and in trade policy with China, and Trump's proposed tariffs. One thing that has been clear is that there's a lot of fear and anger on both sides. Fear and anger that something important has or will be taken away from one side or the other. One of the benefits of hosting the podcast and building Smarter Markets with Abax is that I get to talk with a lot of different types of people, including many likely Trump voters and many likely Harris voters. Strangely, when talking one-on-one, I don't hear the fear or hate that's so prevalent on both traditional and social media. Some of the kindest people I know likely voted for Trump, and some likely for Harris. There are good neighbors on both sides of the fence. And that's why we're doubling down on meaningful conversations and on markets. Because we believe these are the best ways to move past anger and fear toward understanding and working together on our common problems. We believe in markets because markets are how people come together in voluntary cooperation to work to improve their lives. And our markets need to be smarter. We need markets where the prices paid reflect the costs imposed. We still need a price on carbon. We still need green premiums. And we need technology that empowers individuals, but also respects their data and their privacy as their personal property. And in the coming age of artificial intelligence, we're going to need it more than ever. We started the podcast to help us build smarter markets. Because building smarter markets requires conversations, not sound bites, with practical problem solvers whose expertise is demonstrated, not asserted. And now we're starting Coffeehouse to extend that approach to a social media platform where people can engage with each other, not talk past one another. And we want to use our platform not to drive people apart, but to bring them closer together and closer to finding solutions to their common problems through smarter markets. We want to support conversations where thoughtful people with different opinions can disagree without being disagreeable, and where they feel comfortable to speak with the confidence that they may be right and to listen with the humility that they may be wrong. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Coffeehouse, SmarterMarkets' new social media platform for advancing the conversation on energy, climate, markets, and technology. So why do we call it Coffeehouse? Going back in history, what you find is that building smarter markets begins with the exchange of ideas. Many of today's great exchanges were born in coffeehouses, including the New York and London stock exchanges. At Smarter Markets, we're building our virtual coffeehouse for today to facilitate the exchange of ideas that will lead to the smarter markets of tomorrow. That feeling of grabbing a cup of coffee with colleagues to catch up on important issues, or the conversations you have in the hallway during a conference, that's the feeling we're trying to create on this platform. In that spirit, we've designed it to feel familiar, user-friendly, but it's also designed to facilitate meaningful conversations and engagement. To that end, the platform has a look, feel, and functionality similar to LinkedIn or Twitter, X, so users can post content, comments, documents, videos, very similarly to the way they do on these other platforms. However, Coffeehouse provides different levels of access for three types of users that we call contributors, commenters, and members. Contributors can post their content, commenters can comment, and members can read only. We're introducing these three levels of access to support a troll-free comment section where participants can disagree without being disagreeable. A place where we can facilitate thoughtful conversations between experienced market practitioners on important issues that can unfold around the world and around the clock, and our members will be able to follow them all. We want this to be a new gathering space for the executives and icons you listen to on our podcast to engage with each other and rant and riff on how our market systems can be redesigned and improved to address the most important challenges of our time, including climate change and the energy transition. We also want this to be a space where we can introduce to our members our ID++ technology for protecting their digital identity, data, and privacy, and to do this in a way where they can learn as the technology develops and try it out in a low-stakes, low-risk environment. Once again, that feeling of grabbing a cup of coffee with colleagues to catch up on the important issues is what we're looking to create on this platform. And our Smarter Markets members are invited to follow the conversation. Our platform is currently open only to our early contributors and commenters. And in the remainder of this podcast series, Inside the Coffeehouse, we'll be talking with a number of our early contributors to give you a sneak peek into those conversations. Once we've onboarded our early contributors and gotten the conversation started, we'll open the platform to all our members. In the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about Smarter Markets Coffeehouse or join our waitlist, visit Coffeehouse at www.smartermarkets.media. Building new markets begins with the exchange of ideas. At Smarter Markets, we're building our virtual coffeehouse to facilitate the exchange of ideas that will lead to the smarter markets of tomorrow. We hope you join us on this trip. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to Smarter Markets Coffeehouse. We'll be back next Saturday with a guest and our next episode of Inside the Coffeehouse. We hope you'll join us.
This episode was brought to you in part by Abax Exchange, where trading in centrally cleared, physically deliverable LNG and carbon futures contracts is now underway. Ready for smarter markets? Contact us at onboarding@abax.exchange. That concludes this week's episode of Smarter Markets by Abax. For episode transcripts and additional episode information, including research, editorial, and video content, please visit smartermarkets.media. Please help more people discover the podcast by leaving a review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. Smarter Markets is presented for informational and entertainment purposes only. The information presented on Smarter Markets should not be construed as investment advice. Always consult a licensed investment professional before making investment decisions. The views and opinions expressed on Smarter Markets are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the show's hosts or producer. Smarter Markets, its hosts, guests, employees, and producer, Abax Technologies, shall not be held liable for losses resulting from investment decisions based on informational viewpoints presented on Smarter Markets. Thank you for listening, and please join us again next week.